I worked as a nurse in an old hospital. The hospital was known for its unpleasant reputation and rumors of unexplained phenomena. But I never believed in such things until I started working there. My first shift went smoothly. I helped patients, gave injections, monitored their well-being. But over time, I began to notice strange things. Patients complained that someone came to their room at night. I tried not to pay attention to these stories and continued my work. But one day, I myself encountered something inexplicable. I was working the night shift when I heard a strange sound coming from one of the rooms. I opened the door to the room and entered. It was dark inside, and I slowly walked towards the bed. And then I saw him, a patient who died several months ago. I was shocked and tried to call for help, but the phone didn't work. I felt as if something invisible was pressing me against the wall, not allowing me to leave. Every night after this incident, I saw shadows, heard rustling sounds, and felt the presence of invisible forces. The patients continued to complain about the appearance of ghosts, their moans and whispers. I realized that the hospital was truly cursed. I told my colleagues what was happening, but they said it was just our nerves and fatigue. But I knew that this was not true. Nobody believed me, and I could not continue working there. Every night I spent in this hospital became a source of stress for me. I had to resign. Now I avoid this hospital altogether. I was a nurse in a small city hospital. At night, when the hospital was quiet, I started hearing strange sounds. But the strangest thing was that some patients would disappear without a trace. No one knew where they went. One night, while working the night shift, I heard muffled footsteps in the hallway. I stepped out of the room to check who was there, but there was no one. However, when I returned to the room, I found the patient I had just left lying on the floor with wide open eyes and a look of horror on their face. I realized that something evil was happening in this hospital. Deciding to conduct my own investigation, I began studying the hospital archives, reading old records and newspaper articles. And that's when I found the truth. It turns out that the hospital was built on the site of a cemetery. During the construction, secret underground chambers were discovered where many deceased were buried. Instead of relocating them, the builders simply laid the foundation of the hospital over them. Now, the souls of the deceased wander the hospital corridors and torment the patients, driving them to the brink of madness. I remember that night as if it were yesterday. I was a young nurse who had just started working at the hospital. But what happened that night, I will never forget. I was assigned to the night shift and went to my post in the quiet wing of the hospital. When I entered the empty ward, I was overcome with a sense of inexplicable fear. I began to carry out my duties, but with each passing hour, the fear within me grew. It was as if someone was watching me from the shadows, but whenever I turned around, there was no one there. Suddenly, I heard the sound of footsteps in the corridor. They were getting closer and closer, and I started to panic. When I turned around, I saw a tall, dark figure standing in the doorway. My legs refused to move, and I remained frozen with fear. The figure slowly approached me, step by step. I tried to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. When it came so close that I could see its face, I recognized it. It was a patient I had recently cared for who had unexpectedly passed away. He smiled at me with an eerie grin and reached out towards me. I felt that his death was my fault, that I couldn't save him. All the pain and fear I had experienced converged in that moment. I closed my eyes, ready to accept my fate, but when I opened them again, the figure had disappeared. Since then, I have never worked in a hospital again. That night changed me forever. Now I know that there is something between the world of the living and the dead, and that some souls cannot leave this world until they fulfill their purpose.